So welcome to the webinar of Emotional Intelligence for Artificial Intelligence. This is the series of webinars we are doing every month, every first Friday at 12 noon CAT for the Collabwith members and community. So why I am doing these webinars? So I am Jara Pascual, I am telecom engineer, and I was designing technology and interfaces and algorithms from innovation centers and R&D, and doing innovation for 15 years. So when I started to understand like transformation, leadership, and all the technology design is coming from as well emotional intelligence. So the psychology is very important. And now you can see as well, like everyone has this kind of, or they complain like people have fear about AI algorithms, or and why this is, why we are approaching the technology with fear, why this is happening, and we have to be aware of this when we are designing. And as well, like could be the news, could be other things, but we have to be aware when we design and we think about algorithms. So this last summer, I published the book, Innovation and Collaboration in the Digital Era. And because it's innovation and digital, the chapter 10 is about technology and design technology with emotional intelligence, because the whole book is how to use the psychology of emotional intelligence for innovation. And when I designed, well, after finishing my 15 years of experience, I went to entrepreneurship and I designed the platform Collabwith myself. And it was all about co-creation and understanding all the emotional and psychological issues of the collaboration, and how a platform can be super assertive to help the person to be professional and to make the collaboration and innovation happen. As well, I am sharing stories in the podcast Business of Collaboration about examples of real entrepreneurship, real innovation, and coming from industry, but as well from academia. So today, as we discussed, we are going first to understand very quickly an introduction of emotional intelligence. Then we are going to positive computing, and then to the basics of algorithm design, but not technically. So here we are going more into the concepts. Then we are going to the framework of emotional intelligence for software development and AI, what exactly means user experience, the framework of emotional intelligence for the UX, and then to positive impact of technology in the user. And then we are going to go to these 4 emotions to understand what exactly means in the interfaces and the algorithm. So the basics of emotional intelligence is this quadrant. You have here the basic emotions like anger, which is red, happiness, yellow, sad, blue, and content and calm is the green. And this is the reference. Always we are going back to reference because that's the basics. And the basic question always is, what is your mood? What are you feeling now? So this is the question for you now, like you have to answer. For me now, I am a little bit nervous. So Sebastian, for instance, you can put in the chat or you can talk.
All right, so I would say I'm content, but I'm in a room where other people are speaking, so voice is always a little hard. But yeah, I'm pretty green, I would say.
So in the case we were very excited or nervous or angry, and we want to go down in the energy levels or to be a bit more calm, always the technique to move from emotion to emotion is breathing. So breathing with the diaphragm here. It's a deep breath And here is like, it's very basic, but it's the technique is working. And this technique you can use in a meeting room, you can use in an elevator, you can use in the park, you can use everywhere. So this is, and it's invisible, but it's super, very, very effective. In the case is a little bit too much of energy, angriness or something, like you can always do a walk, get a cup of tea and look at the window, but it's always to stop and breathe. Even before answering an email, you know, it was a complicated email, so it will be very good to breathe before answering. So if we did this exercise of breathing, how are you feeling now? What is your mood? Myself, I am more green, more into the calm. Are you, Sebastian?
Me too.
You are more calm. So introduction to emotional intelligence, it does not matter what you think, but what you feel and how you make people feel. And this is the technique. So you can see here other colors and other emotions. Like one of the things is to have vocabulary to express how are you feeling. And then you see here, the first question is how you perceive what are you feeling yourself at the moment. Then is how you perceive emotions on others. So how your team is feeling. This is the first step. The second step is to understand the emotions. So in the cases, you have to understand yourself, why you are nervous now, why you are angry, why you are calm now. And then to others, why the other person is angry, why the other person is super happy. Is the second step is understanding of the emotions. And emotions are always information. The third step is managing emotions. So which means, like we did a little exercise before, if you are nervous or very excited or angry, you can manage to go to calm. This is a capacity or the skill to move the emotion, to manage. So, and then again, is as well to others. If you see the other person is very angry or nervous, how you have the capacity to help the other person or your team to go calm. And this is with your team, and this is as well with your customer, with your partners. And the next step, the next level, is using emotions. And this is the whole presentation today, is about using, is as well using emotions. For instance, yellow, the happiness, is very good for brainstorming, looking for solutions, looking for ideas. This is the part of using emotions, how you can make your team, when you have to look for solutions, to the happiness quadrant. For instance, if you are in a crisis and the servers are down, for instance, so everyone has to be angry. They cannot find like, yeah, we will find the solution, go. No, as a leader, you have to be angry as well, because that's the mood of angriness, to collect all this energy, take this energy from you and the team to take action, not to be paralyzed. In this case, you can go as well back to the blue, to the sad, because sad is like critic, being critic, to say what is happening, why this is not working, the server. So this is the part of the blue is very useful as well in the case of software development, testing, prototyping, testing has to be in the blue. Error checking, critic, you know, like you don't believe everything, you know, you have to trace and to prove everything. That's the more the blue sad emotion. Openness to find errors. So this is how you will use the emotions, to change and to move you and your team to the emotions is right for the action you have to do. So I am introducing this app from Yale University because we are working with them and they created the university this app. Very easy, like when you can see, okay, this is my mood, and sometimes you will see there are different type of moods. It's a mix of emotions. Sometimes it's not only one color or two colors, you have a mix, and this could be a nice tool when you have this discussion with your team, to have a tool and a reference. So the question for you as well now is how you are now knowing the basics of emotional intelligence. How are your skills now for emotional intelligence?
I don't know. Usually I would say okay. So yeah, but then there's of course situations where not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is coming. The reality. The reality check.
Like when the children, do things that like
yeah.
like there's this limit, you're like calm, but eventually it's like above your ability to handle it.
And you have to make before, and that's always super incredible to see, like your family triggers you much more deep emotions, like others, because they matter. So when you master your family, it's like you master everything. When you master your kids. So, and this is very curious how an article for the Harvard Business Review was coming in 2017 saying the rise of AI makes emotional intelligence much more important. And this is super interesting because that's, I think, the point I explained at the beginning of people have fear of algorithms now. What we did wrong. We are not explaining correctly technology or how we design systems. Like people understood this as they have fear of. So it's very important, like we check up as well how we design things and what is the mood when we are designing technology as well. So here is why I like this concept. It's coming from 2014 from Professor Rafael Calvo and Dorian Peters. At that time, when they introduced this theory, they were both in Australia and they created a super cool, you can see the book here. I will share with you as a reading list. Positive computing is amazing. They have this definition of design and development of technology to support psychological well-being and human potential. So how technology can support, how can be psychological be good for the people. I remember when I found this book, it was recommended by another professor of AI, and I was driving the Department of IT doing innovation at Adidas. It was super interesting for me when we were designing the workplace or all the activities around workplace and how we design or solve issues with innovation. Like we have this in mind, like has to be good for the employee and the user behind the screen. There is always this joke about if there is something wrong, it's the person in front of the computer. And I think we have to change a little bit the arguments maybe or the storytelling. And we are responsible, as designers and programmers, we are full responsible of the algorithm. So if we are making the people feel angry, so we are responsible for this. So we have to be aware of this. So AI algorithm design. This is for me one of my favorite questions always. Before we do something, is like, what is the objective? So what is the objective? Why, in your case, Sebastian, you are doing AI agents. What is the objective of this? And then the other question is, how can you bring a positive computing mindset in the process? This is because always when you put a technology out there, you have your customer, because at the end you have customers of your technology and users, face expectations, now with all this marketing copywriting, something we are lost in translation sometimes. Maybe we create confusion, frustration, like what is the commitment? The communication is clear and transparent from the system to, what is authentic, or the algorithm is accountable for what this is doing. How we can think about this as well when we are in designing and when we have the objective there in mind. So, and then, because I assume you are all experts of AI, so what is AI for you, and how is your process of AI algorithm design in your case?
So yeah, unfortunately, I can't speak too much because I'm in this room. But to a little bit answer the first question, I think for me it really goes back like to the original definition of saying that we should have computers that act in a way that we consider them intelligent. So that's really what I'm thinking about. So sometimes we do things which are not deep learning models, but they are still contribute to this feeling of having a smart system on the other side. Yeah. So, and on the other hand, you might have deep learning models, which are, we officially call them AI models, but they're like, they don't contribute as much to this feeling, maybe. Yeah. So I think it really matters from a user experience perspective what it is. And in terms of the algorithm design, I would say it's a lot of testing, experimenting, research. Like, I've never seen a project where we just started and knew in the beginning exactly how we would come to the solution, simply because the technology is so complex, and when you put different things together, then you never know exactly what the outcome will be. And so it's it's not as clear, I would say. So it's a process of experimentation, different, and then comparing and seeing like, am I on the right path or wrong path, doing multiple things in parallel. So there's also a lot about processes, a lot about data cleaning, creativity. Which data do we use? Which data can we get? All these questions that are in this process.
Super interesting. So now is the framework you can find in the book, here in the chapter 10. And it was controversial, and I remember when I discussed with my husband, who is programming as well, he said like, what is it doing? So here it is. So the well-being as a software developer, and understand emotions when you are in the process of design and programming and testing. So don't forget testing, by the way. So starting, so it's very good to be in the mood. So angry or frustration is not bad. You can use for positive outcomes as well, this emotion. So the angry emotion, anger, is very good for starting. When you are feeling this frustration, this fear, this angry because something is not working, disappointment, this energy is very good to find issues, to find needs. After, you have to channel this anger and this disappointment and frustration to take action, not to create drama. But this is very important for kickoff, take action, okay, and find really what is not working. So the issues they made, like, fuck, this is not working. you know, like, or we have to make a solution for this, you know, like this kind of energy is coming from the anger. So the other part, when we have to look for solutions and be creative, have ideas, find this kind of different connections and different points to put all together, this is happiness. This is the yellow part, the yellow quadrant. When as much excited you are, you don't care about the problems, you know. So it's very good to focus on solutions when you are in the yellow part, like super happy. That's the part of designing, creativity, you know. And yeah, we can do this and this and this and this, and you build one idea up on top of the other. This is very good for the yellow. So it's very important, like yourself and your team, you move to this. Or when you create a session only for design and looking for solutions, you have to be in this mood. So you have to create this mood. So then you are programming. So programming is full calm, concentration, like ultra mega focus. And this is, you know, when you can be happy, it's impossible to be focused and concentrated. It's almost impossible. Anger, either. So sadness, either. So that's why, you know, to be aware, you have a bad email coming up in your inbox and you say, but I have to program this. No, first stop. And like the exercise we did at the beginning, breathe. You park the email outside. If you need a cup of tea, you make a cup of tea, you get calm, and then you start programming. You know, this is very important to understand how emotions you can use and how they are working. So the other part is when you build something and now you have to test. It's a prototype, or it's like when you have to review all the bugs, testing, the different type of testing. User testing, the white, the black box testing. And this one, you have to be super critic. You can, if you are happy when you are testing, it doesn't matter this bug, you know, it's not too much, no? Or doesn't matter if we fuck up the user, you know, like it's very important to be in this blue quadrant when it's like this kind of questioning, error checking, like, you know, you are very critical, you don't believe what you see. This is the blue, what exactly means this. Blue means as well to be open-minded, because you have to be open to see, this is not working, you know. And this is only happening when you are in the blue emotion, in the blue quadrant. So for you, the question is, what is your emotional mood? If you recognize now when you are designing an algorithm,
I don't know. Can change a lot.
Believe that this person
So
yeah, exactly, yeah.
will matter.
I would say all these different
They probably
things
will not,
happen, like you're
share
excited
the
that it works and then it doesn't work, and you're maybe tired and frustrated, and you work so long, the accuracy is not high enough, there's fear, will I be able to produce this properly?
Gentlemen, sorry. Seriously.
Yeah,
Huawei
so
company is
So this is very important.
and then suddenly when there's like the result, it's like, wow, you know?
But it's very important to manage the fear, you know, of no capability or something, because imagine how you can program when you are in the mood of fear. The outcome will be not the same. Maybe you are transpassing this fear to the consumer, to the user, you know.
But you know, I was once I mean, like, you know, I was working with firefighters before, and there was this study saying that you cannot be creative under pressure. Yeah? But I would disagree. I think professionals and also programmers have to develop strategies to be
then
creative
you
under fear, under pressure,
of course,
to somehow,
we are not asking
you know,
any
pressure
information that we
yourself
can
in a way, and then
find
suddenly you
otherwise.
wake up and you're like, ah, this is how it should be done.
So you're
But
Yeah, but
but
pressure
then,
is coming from the crisis management, you know, when you have this part of crisis and you have to make the solution immediately, or you have the deadlines, you know. Like this is the type of pressure, not like you have to be, you don't have not to be dramatic in a way like, oh, I feel like that, well, I don't know, you know, like different type of fear is there. But this is one of the points to, okay, one thing is pressure and the other is fear, like, you know, you are freaking out or you don't believe you can make it. And this is different. I think when you are in a crisis mode, you know, you have the other fear, you know, the animal prehistoric fear, like you will survive and you will do it because that's the survival fear, you know, crisis mode, you know. But when you have this psychological emotional fear, like the doubts of yourself or the fear of the algorithm maybe is not working properly or something, that's another fear. That's not the same.
yeah, I understand. I would still, for myself, say that I wouldn't try to get rid of them, you know, because for me, I understand that if I have that, I'm in that situation, I'm in the situation quite often, I don't know, it triggers my brain. So I think as a creative professional, which you have to be when you do this stuff, I think you have to, I would even say sometimes suffer the fear because you know it contributes to your creativity.
Exactly, that's a part of taking action. So when you use the fear to take action in a positive instead of paralyzation, you know, like for instance in the COVID crisis, people got a lot of fear suddenly. So some of them, they take action, no, use this channel of the energy of the fear to take action, and the others, they got the fear to get paralyzed. No, and if you are interested in this, there is the Professor Besant in Exeter University. He's doing now research on crisis innovation, on how to move the organizations into a crisis to get this kind of survival fear. Or, well, he's not talking about survival fear, but this kind of survival mode of creativity. But I think I still believe, like, when you are calm is when you are getting the most of best of the ideas sometimes. It's like when you are in pressure, you have a specific type of creativity as well, and push. But it's like how you can move and use the emotion of anger to push you forward, to motivate you, you know. But I think this is a different type of motivation. So user experience, there is the user-centered design. And when you are working with users, you have to be super clear of your intentions. You know, like sometimes you are doing more field observational work and you have some papers and you have the focus groups of discussions in a group to say, we are going to have an app now, like everyone will see where you are. And if they need you for a voluntary work, if you are close to them, they will contact you. And I remember this working many years ago in the user lab in an innovation center. And the women there, like it was the target group of volunteers for helping other elder people. They was like, what? People, they will know where I am, you know? And this is very important to have always the first conversation. What do you think about this? How you are feeling? Do you like to help people? How you will like to help people? No, in the case of depending of the technology you are developing. So in this sense, it's like how you can integrate the user, but now in the design, we will see how your interface and algorithm make the people feel. And feelings are engagements. And so here is the framework of UX with emotional intelligence. For instance, we have an app, whatever, a web browser system, but the person cannot log in, for instance. This person cannot do the thing, cannot work. And this user is getting angry. If you have, that's why it's very important to manage expectations when we are talking about users. If you have a login page, the user expects, okay, I am logging, I enter the system. This is, it's about not only productivity or like it's not working anymore, but you create issues and the feeling like it's not working, I will not use it anymore. So sometimes we forgot how important is the login sometimes, or like the thing has to work, the button has to work. If you have a button there, has to work the button. If not, why there is this button, no? For instance, or how, I think this is very important. This is very basic examples, but this is how you can trigger anger, frustration, disappointment in the user. So the other is the blue quadrant. It's like when we pass from not working to it's not productive. Maybe to have a login is 30 minutes to enter to the system, like 30 minutes to enter to the system. Like this person cannot work. Even I know system, they have this long process login for software developers, and it's because the integration of and the architecture of the single sign-on, it was very bad done. Or the recognition of the authentication of the user ID, for instance. Or you expect, I remember some years ago, or not some years ago, you say, I want this information. And you are waiting 20 minutes, one day, never comes. So sometimes we have to think about what we are doing, what is the objective at the end? How do you make the user feel? And what is the impact of this in the user? And if you want this impact, so then in the happiness part, like you are creating engagement. The user is happy to use. So how you can create motivational engagement and make your user into the happiness quadrant. And then it's when we are talking about well-being. So it's feeling good when it's in your system, whatever the system is. And here I remember we did this class as well with the space technology startups, and they had a lot of satellite system connectivity for emergency cases or other cases, or information which is sometimes very critical. So in this sense, you have to be aware of if there is a time of crisis or the user will be in a crisis mode, you have to think, okay, what is I want like the user be calm. If it's very stressful situation, the user need the information very straight away, very clear. Because maybe he's like very stressed out and very nervous, he cannot read everything. Or he cannot answer, but he has to take action. So how you understand the emotions the user is having at the moment of you are designing, or in the cases, and how you can help them drive in the emotion they need to be. For instance, from very basic examples for many complex examples, because at the end from the satellite, you have many systems, but at the end always you have a user. Or when they are detecting malformations in mountains or in other, here in the Netherlands, when the dikes are getting a little bit with problems and open, you have to inform everyone to take action to solve this issue. So it's coming from the satellite, but at the end, someone has to make a decision to take action. So this is very important to understand how the emotions of the user are and how you can move them. And then in the calm, it's super easy to use. It's like, you force the calm, and then it's like the productivity, the focus, like they are doing what they have to do in the system. And it's everything super smooth. in the sense like in crisis, for instance, okay, I know the system is helping you. You know, the part of machine learning is an intelligence is helping you through the process to manage the crisis, for instance. So that could be the part of productivity and easy to use, you know, like it's helping really you to make your work. So here my question to you, when a user, if you can imagine, can feel fear with your product in this case? You know, we are going to the other side.
Okay, so Alexandra.
Yeah, so
Can I go to the... Yes,
you know,
yes,
for
I'm
us
going
it's
to
really the
listen
matter
to
of when they have to do
yeah.
something and our
Yeah, okay.
agents don't produce what they really need. That's one fear. The other fear is that, and I think the bigger fear is maybe that they, if they buy our services, like, can we really deliver? Can the AI really deliver what they need? Or will somebody later say, "Oh, this was a waste of money"? Yeah. So when you work with
Yeah,
bigger
that's your fear.
corporations,
Yeah.
they have that. They are not so.
So they have the fear as a user, like the system will not give the solution.
Yeah. Or that they will now buy something or use something that works now, but maybe not for another case or something. So because the complexity is so big, they don't know how it applies in other cases.
And how you can help the user, your customer, to overcome this fear.
Yeah, I think we can show different examples. We can have a payment model where this is where they're happy with this, and
Or you can make messages like, this information, do you like this information? Or, you know, what is missing? You know, this kind of communication, like you comfort them, you know, you have to be the system some kind of psychologist to, we will show now the frustration and emotion, but how you can help them to think about solution in a positive way. To say, okay, that's not working. Okay, past. what I did get now. Okay, use what you get. How you can help the user to use what they get, even if it's not everything they wanted, but something they wanted. You know, like, you use this. Start now with your next step, your analysis. What is the next thing you want to go? You know, like managing them in a way like they have helped them to manage the fear, to overcome the fear and take action.
Yeah, we do this many times, and we have different users. You know, not yet, no. But
okay,
personally.
so that's the point to design.
Yeah, but it's difficult, you know, because there's some users who are like, oh yeah, this is not relevant, but I don't matter, I don't look at it. And then there's others who's like, oh, there's 95% is correct, but then there's one thing that it's still incorrect. It's like, yeah, but you also have 95% correct
exactly,
things.
focus on the things that work.
So, but this is something which we will do as the agents become more interactive.
Yeah.
That we can maybe understand better, like which type of user is sitting in front of us.
Yeah, and with some questions, and then, okay, what are you feeling now? No, or just, you know, manage with emotions, discover the emotions they have. And it's how, if they are frustrated, how you can help them. Or anyhow,
Yeah.
okay, I am helping you, even if I, you know, you can say, okay, how many users are frustrated always? 50%, okay, I assume all of them are frustrated. So you design the algorithm, you know, to be intelligent in a way, like they help them to go through the frustration. So, and this is one, it's coming from the book of Rafael Calvo and Doris Peter, Positive Computing, here, because I found super interesting. When the person is using the technology, it's not only the person using the technology. You know, they are doing something always. You have the interface, they are doing something. There is a behavior, there is a life around the society, something is happening around all the time. They are not alone in a box, you know, only working full 100% concentration and attention to the system. So this is 3 points to keep the user and insisting technology for well-being and human potential. You make them empowered and feeling good. For motivation and engagement, because they are feeling, when you remember happiness, when they are feeling good is when they are engaged. So how? Autonomy, competence, and relentlessness. So autonomy, I can do the things, you know, I am not feeling silly, or, you know, like the algorithm or the system is intelligent, but me too, you know, this feeling you make them intelligent. As well, the competence, like I can do the things. And feeling connected to the system, on everything, you know, like there is a flow there. So here we are going to the basics emotions. I think we have time. So engagement and motivation. We saw now with the techniques of all the environment around you, around the user, but as well from emotional intelligence perspective, engagement is our motivation and how to motivate the users to use your system. Very curious, motivation is linked to self-esteem and self-confidence. How the system can help the users to increase the self-esteem. This is very easy, because if motivation is linked to self-esteem, self-esteem means value. If you listen to the users, your system, if you value them, you give them time as a system, you value them. Thank you for doing this. Good job. You know, you value more or less, depending on the system. This kind of messages, it makes them, you value them as a user, they will be motivated. They will be engaged with the system, because motivation is linked to self-esteem. In the case of the teams, of if you are a leader of a team, it's exactly the same thing. The kids, the same thing. If you give them time and value, and you value their work, and you have time to listen, and everyone has their own time, they will be motivated. So we are going to the next emotion, is frustration. You know, like, they're not working. So how you can help the user to overcome this frustration? And this is the emotion of frustration, anger, you know, disappointment. So, and it's the same thing as a leader, as a team building, as a user. So in the case, focus, like we discussed before, focus on the things you've been able to accomplish so far. So when you make the user, you did this already, very good, you know, like you help them to recognize all the things they did until now. You know, they don't focus if the small thing is not working, but they have to work as well in the thing is working. So the other is, do not place over-dimensional expectations, which means the same we discussed before. You have to manage expectations. You cannot say, you will do everything with this system, because it's so intelligent, everything you can do alone. You have not to do nothing. And then it's coming the reality, and the user is not true. So the user will be getting frustrated. So how you can avoid this in the system? And as well, like, frustration is coming because you focus too much on errors and mistakes. So how you can help your user, your customer of your system, like they're allowed to make mistakes. You know, how you inform them, like, try again, you know, or something. Like, you have to understand what could be the different cases of making frustrated the user and the customer, and how you can overcome them, how you can help them to overcome these cases of frustration. or accepting obstacles. You know, the pages of error, this is a very typical page. They are very ugly. Error 505 is a server, you know, of 404 is the typical ones, or 500. Like, and they are very ugly and say error, but fuck. No, it's not working. So instead of, you can make a nice page of error. Wow, we have a problem with the server, so sorry. So do this, go and make a link to a next page, you know, not make them in a hole or something when you can. And as well, open the mind of alternative targets. You know, maybe they were not doing this thing properly. Okay, you can try another thing here, or you can go in this path, or we are showing you, you know, if it's very complex system, you know, and how the other is how you can simplify things to reduce all the cases of frustration you are creating. Maybe that's another point as well. So let me check the time. Yeah, maybe we have. The question for you is, how can you help your user to manage frustration?
I think that first of all is recognizing it.
Yeah, when you create this frustration.
So I understand you're frustrated, I think is the first thing, because if you're like, oh well, this is not such a big problem, I think you misunderstood me. Yeah? So I think that the recognition of the frustration is the first thing. So I understand that you're frustrated with this.
Yeah, that's the empathy.
I think that's the beginning. And that will be also the beginning probably for a system to understand that the user is frustrated, which is not easy because you often don't have that information. You just get, I don't know, what the user enters into a form. Yeah, so you would have to ask maybe, like, and then you know, understand the frustration and then act upon it, like allow to express it. You know, make sure that it's being handled. Yeah, and that is, I mean, like most of the time user frustrations are ignored in a way. Like you don't know. Like think about Skype. Yeah, Skype was the number.
In the time of Microsoft.
Yeah, it was the best. It was the best tool ever, and then they frustrated their users. But I think they didn't know it. I think they didn't know.
Yeah, that's why in the design, it will be a very nice exercise. What is the objective, and what in the cases I am making the user frustrated, you know? And when you are doing the user testing, you can gather this information as well, you know, to design already with this in mind. Okay, we know we are frustrating the user in these cases, and we cannot avoid this. So how you can manage this frustration, you know?
Yeah, it's actually interesting, you know. I mean, like we haven't yet really started to do that, but it's super. I mean, like I have lots of ideas of how you could do it. You could show something alternative. You could give a gift. You know, you could say, "I'm sorry, I messed up this, but here's something in return." I think that it has not really been done yet.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
at least.
You did this so far, you know, this kind of progress thinking, or you develop, you have this information already. Work on this information. You value what you have, you know, instead of focusing on the mistakes. Yeah. So the next emotion, yeah.
Telling a joke, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, why not? To change the moods, you know. So I think that's a very good idea. So the next emotion is very important for systems and algorithms, is assertiveness. Assertiveness is linked as well to self-esteem. What does it mean? In system-wise, okay, you value your system like it's a good system, and then you can be assertive to the user, but as well, you value the user enough, like the user is assertive with you. It's telling really what is happening. You know, it's not afraid of saying something. You know, sometimes it's difficult to say, I don't know, typical for the login is again, I think, my password is not working, typical things. And sometimes instead of saying the password is not working, the user is afraid and is saying, I don't know, I cannot log in or whatever. They are not able to say really what is not happening, because maybe they are having fear of, I am not enough, why I am me to say something to the support team, to the, whatever. So it's very important to understand this. Like, it's not the problem, in front of the computer, but you have to value them. Like, they can tell you the truth at the right time, they have to say it. And not only to the support team, but as well to the system when they need information from the user. This is very important. For instance, in the cases of the complexity of satellite systems, how you can make the user, like, you have to give me this information is very important. So before, you have to value them. So the system somehow, depending on the type of system, you have to value your user. Like, they like themselves and they like what they are doing. And this is assertiveness. For instance, in a daily life, very silly case, I have a friend is coming to my house and she's giving me a green tea package, a green tea. But I don't like green tea, I like black tea. So being assertive means I said to my friend, because I love her and I love me, to say, thank you for this present, but I don't like green tea, sorry. This is assertiveness, Like, you are able to say the thing you like and you love and the information you need to say it because you love you, and this is related to self-esteem. So how the system can help the user to be assertive, and as well how the system can be assertive, it's not hidden things, in the system. I don't want to ask you this, but I have to ask you this, and I am asking you at the end of the, of the steps or something. So we go to the next one, empathy. So empathy is the foundation of the relationships. So, and you want, like, your system has a relationship with your customer, with your user. So how you can be the system empathetic? So how you can recognize the system, like the person is frustrated? How you recognize that the person has problems with assertiveness, with motivation? Maybe you can see they are not using the system. You say, a problem. How you can build this relationship with them? Like, they can recognize, we know maybe you are tired to log in 30 minutes login or something, like, be empathetic with them and say, like, but, we understand you, how this communication is going. And it's very curious how communication and how this interface communication is making the relationship with the user and how the user will use your system. So I was thinking as well, like, when we are including emotions in the design of technology or in the mode of programming, or how we understand the impact in the user at the end of our algorithm, at the end it's some kind of mindfulness, because you have to breathe all the time when you are moving emotions to emotions, and to understand as well emotions of your user. So that's, I was like, I like it to make this kind of joke at the end of the webinar. But as a reminder of emotional intelligence, Daniel Goleman from Harvard said, emotional competencies are not talents like we are growing up, but learning capabilities. So they are skills everyone can learn. It's not about personality, it's not about culture, it's not about, are skills you can have and you can grow yourself and in your team and in your user. Because it does not matter what you think, but what you feel and how you make people feel. So thank you very much. And the questions now for you: what is the most important thing that you learned today? And what is the most challenging part for you in the process of design and programming now, style?
Yeah, thank you, Jara, for this. It was very interesting. I was a little bit like in the beginning thinking like that maybe it's like more like super optional for us, but the more you were presenting, the more I realized like how close it is to what our daily problems are, which is to manage expectations of users, their feelings towards it, their their misunderstanding or ununderstanding of what the technology is doing actually, and their reactions to it. And I think that is for us a super important, challenging question. Like, how good is good enough, and what happens if the user doesn't think so? And so yeah, so it also of course requires, like what we were talking about today, requires a lot of technology as well to understand this, what are users feeling, to be able to interact with them. It's a very complex, yeah, like you have
there
a
are
lot,
startups already, systems
yeah, but like
in
putting
research
it,
doing this, but now it's very important to find the use case, I think, for all of this. No?
yeah, and put it together, I mean,
Exactly,
like
to put it
you,
together.
you need to be able to like ask the user a question, the user should answer that question, and so on, provide feedback, how can you do it in a good way, and there's like tons of questions when you actually want to implement any of these concepts, which are super interesting. And I have to say, they're like usually not number one priority, because the number one priority is to get the quality up and not to manage the other cases. But of course, it's a
It is
very
related to
smart thing to
quality.
do it. Yeah.
That it's not only
Yeah.
Totally,
So,
yeah.
who is talking about
So,
I
but
will introduce you to one in Belarusia. There are, I think, no, Ukraine and Belarusia, in both, I think, there is a startup doing this. So getting the emotions of the user based on keyboard taps when they are answering a questionnaire, a very simple questionnaire. So you will have all the emotions about the user when they are answering a questionnaire. But this technology, I think, regardless of questionnaire, hidden could be very useful in all the type of platforms. In this case, so I will introduce to them, because I think this could be interesting to experiment somehow. Like, this machine learning approach and how you manage this communication with the user in because you are showing a lot of results in your agents. How you can detect what they think about what the documents you are presenting, the information. If they are overwhelmed, how they use this, like maybe you have to showcase step by step all the information, or how, like, you want more? You did this, super fantastic, go next level, or I don't know. That could be super fascinating, how you can expand the experience